As the sun set on a narrow street, the city prepared for another evening, unaware that something small was about to begin. Outside a quiet building, a chalkboard sign invited passers-by to pause, hinting at the honesty and warmth found within. It began with a plank of wood, a few jars, and a sign that asked nothing but honesty. It began with a table, a small, unassuming thing of weathered wood, left on a corner where the city's breath was a constant, hurried sigh. For weeks it was just another piece of urban furniture, a ghost in the periphery. Pigeons used it for meetings, rain washed it clean. It held nothing but the memory of forgotten conversations, a silent witness to the relentless pace of life. People walked past it, their gazes fixed on destinations, their minds cluttered with the day's anxieties. Busy feet, busy minds. Until one morning, a baker named Elias, his apron a map of flour and his hands warm from the dawn's work, found himself with an extra loaf. It was a rustic sourdough, its crust a deep crackled brown, its scent a promise of simple comfort. He could have taken it home, but something made him pause. Perhaps it was the way the early light caught the grain of the wood. Without a second thought, he placed the loaf down, a quiet offering to the anonymous street. He did not ask for thanks. The act itself was the reward. Later that morning, Abigail passed by. She carried her youngest in a sling, his soft breath a warm patch against her chest, while her toddler tugged at her hand, a whirlwind of 5-year-old energy. The morning had been a frantic scramble of lost shoes and spilled milk, a familiar chaos that left her feeling one step behind. She was tired, down to her bones. Her eyes, usually scanning for sidewalk cracks, caught the unexpected sight, a perfect loaf of bread, sitting as if it had been waiting just for her. She hesitated, a city dweller's caution warring with a deeper need. She looked around, but the street offered no clues. The baker was long gone. With a gentle hand, she reached out and broke off a warm bun for her son, then a piece for herself. As her boy chewed happily, a rare moment of quiet descended. In that small, unexpected piece, a wave of gratitude washed over her. It wasn't just the bread, it was the gesture, a silent message that in the vast, impersonal city, someone had thought to be kind. She wanted to say thank you, to close the circle. Rummaging in her bag, she found a crumpled napkin and a stubby pencil. She smoothed the paper on the table's surface and wrote just 2 words. It helped. A simple, heartfelt acknowledgement. She folded the napkin carefully and tucked it under a small, empty glass jar that someone else had left behind, a makeshift paperweight against the breeze. She left the rest of the loaf for the next person, her own small addition to the chain of kindness. From his second-story window across the street, an elderly man named Mr. Henderson watched it all. He had seen the baker leave the loaf. He had seen the hurried pedestrians ignore it. And now, he saw the young mother, her face softened with relief, leave her small, white note. He had lived on the street for 50 years, watching the world change from his armchair. He often felt like a ghost himself. But this small drama, played out on the stage of a forgotten table, stirred something in him. It was a flicker of connection, a reminder that community isn't a place, but a series of small, deliberate actions. The table became a gathering place, where hands rested and stories began to unfold, each one adding to the growing sense of community. Strangers met at the table, their hands briefly touching as they exchanged greetings and small tokens of trust. The table answered in the only language it knew, more hands. A student dropped off books, an elder placed a knitted hat. The atmosphere was rich with possibility, as if every moment held the promise of a new connection. Gifts were exchanged with quiet smiles, each gesture weaving a stronger bond between neighbors and friends. The corner grocery store watched over the table, its windows reflecting the subtle changes in the neighborhood as kindness spread. People gathered around the table, sharing food and laughter, their hands reaching out in friendship and support. A simple sandwich passed from one hand to another, a small act that carried great meaning in the growing community. Small unease turned into conversation. A shared umbrella, a borrowed phone, a stranger's small favor became a new kind of currency. It began, as these things often do, with a single humble offering. A loaf of bread left on the table at dawn, its crust still crackling with warmth. It was an anonymous gift, a simple gesture that asked for nothing in return. But kindness is a conversation. The next day, a small jar of homemade jam appeared beside a steaming pot of tea. A silent question had been answered. A connection was forged in flour and steam. Soon, the table learned a new rhythm. Little rituals began to weave themselves into the fabric of the neighborhood, the morning loaf, the mid-afternoon tea, and then the evening note. Tucked under a glass or a stone, they were confessions, thank yous, fragments of poetry. The table was a place to leave burdens as well as bread. An elderly woman, whose silence held the weight of a lifetime, began leaving old photographs, each one a story waiting to be seen. A quiet teenager, who rarely spoke, started a small, rotating library, leaving books that had offered him escape, hoping they might do the same for another. It was a currency of care, an unspoken pact. Each offering was a reflection of the giver, a memory, a passion, a quiet hope. The table wasn't just wood and nails anymore. It was a living archive of their shared humanity, a testament to the profound ways we can hold each other without ever touching. The change was gradual, almost imperceptible at first. The initial flurry of excitement over free items, a gently used book, a spare set of mugs, began to settle. What replaced it was something far more valuable, a currency of connection that couldn't be priced. In time, the market was less about the items on the table and more about the people around it. It became less about what you could get, and more about simply being seen. Mrs. Gable, whose world had shrunk to the four walls of her apartment, found a reason to step outside. She'd bring down a thermos of tea, her contribution. In return, she received stories. Liam, a university student renting a small room far from home, found a surrogate family. He'd helped carry groceries for Mr. Henderson from 2 doors down, and in exchange, Mr. Henderson, a retired carpenter, showed him how to fix the wobbly leg on his desk. Names were learned not just as labels, but as stories. Numbers were exchanged, not just for emergencies, but for invitations. A coffee, a walk in the park, a shared Sunday paper. A neighbor's grocery run became a shared errand, a weekly ritual. The kindness was contagious, spilling from the table onto the pavement. A young musician started bringing his acoustic guitar on Saturday afternoons, not for tips, but for the simple joy of adding a soundtrack to the scene. An artist would leave small, beautiful charcoal sketches tucked between items, a bird, a face, a flower, free for the taking. The baker, who had once just been a face behind a counter, was now Marco. He and Liam, the student, bonded over a shared love for sourdough, their numbers exchanged for a recipe and a promise of a lesson. And the table itself stood as a silent, weathered witness to it all. It was just wood and nails, a simple object that cost nothing. Yet it held more worth than anything in the storefronts that lined the street. It didn't offer solutions to the world's grand problems. It didn't erase hardship, but it did something profound. It addressed the quiet poverty of loneliness. A table that cost nothing taught a street how to give not just things, but time, attention, and a piece of oneself. This wasn't a fairy tale. It was a testament to a fundamental human truth. We are built for community. In an age of digital walls and curated lives, this simple wooden table became a radical act of connection. It was a quiet rebellion, a reminder that the strongest communities aren't built by grand designs or sweeping policies, but by the accumulation of small, intentional acts of care. It proved that a space, when offered with trust and without expectation, will inevitably be filled with the best of our nature. This story, of this street and this table, is just one of thousands playing out in unseen corners of the world. They are stories of quiet grace, of the small choices that ripple outwards to create profound change. They are the stories that remind us of who we are and who we can be to one another. If this quiet act of kindness, this transformation of a simple street corner has moved you, then you understand the heart of what we do here at Emotoura. We believe these stories are the most important ones to tell. They are cinematic maps to a more connected world. We invite you to join our community of viewers, a global neighborhood united by the search for these moments of humanity. Subscribe for more cinematic stories about the small choices that make us and that build our world. Become a part of the journey. Let's continue to find the beauty in giving, together.